Ask me about the shirt, mate.
Matey, that's a beautiful powder blue shirt. I'm assuming you're talking Bulls.
No, I'm not. I'm talking Macron.
I love
And
it.
Bulls.
Macron.
And we're not talking Emmanuel Macron. We're talking Macron,
Yes.
the sporting brand. One of the best in Europe, Italian brand, quality. And they have partnered with ourselves.
Glorious.
Wonderful. Rassie, Peterson, 161 matches for the Proteas. Goalkeeper. Charles Kraus, our man in Dublin, URC. They kind of know each other from their hockey days. They got together. They said they liked the show. We started chatting. They really like you. They said we could see Zels in a great Macron outfit.
Wow.
They're big in rugby. They're big in cricket. If you're watching the Proteas, the Lords this week, you'll see them in their Macron outfit. If you watch the Lions, you watch the Cheetahs. If you watch the Barbarians on the 28th of June, they'll be in Macron. If you watch Italy, if you watch Georgia, Portugal, if you watch Paul Gymnasium, the best schools team in South Africa at the moment, Macron.
Winners,
Now,
just like us.
winners. They wanted to be aligned with a winning brand. And I said, you've come to the right place. So to Rassie and the team, a big shout out.
Oh, fabulous.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks for the kit. It's so nice to fit into something again. And because
Mate, you
the
look
Italian
great.
fit is extra slim, I am in an XL.
Exactly. No, you
But
look fab.
just wonderful quality. We're going to be, as the season unfolds, we're going to be giving away some good kit, but you can also purchase a lot of kit. And we are going to be bringing out our famous brand, Box by 10.
Mate.
Because you heard it on the Keo Zels show, Box by 10 always for the international season. And you can purchase that here, or you can purchase it on Macron's website.
I love it. People have
Details
been in the
to follow.
comments. People have been in the comments about that Box by 10 shirt. They're wanting it. They're waiting for it. Now it's going to land.
So there will be some good stuff we're going to be doing with Macron. We're also
Great.
going to be spending a lot of time with the Barbars in Cape Town in 2 weeks' time. And there may just be a wonderful Barbars jersey as a prize.
Whoa.
I hope you heard that, Rassie. So, yeah, so it's a great partnership. They invest in South African sport big time. They're one of the biggest in Europe. Italy is their home, so obviously the quality of the clothing is going to be good. And, yeah, and just good people as well. Very, very cool people. And so a massive shout out. They really are into rugby. They're going to grow their brand in South Africa, and we're going to help them grow it. Our podcast teammates, Jean Dion, Rudy Page, they also are with Macron. So watch their show as well. It's always good value. They have good guests on there. And exciting times.
Exciting times,
So
mate.
exciting times. So thanks. We got Macron on board. We've got our Stecco mates on board, and we're going to get a few more guys on board as well. And there's going to be cool prizes all year for people to win. And we're hoping to get a big prize at the end of the year. A big prize. So stay tuned every week for that big prize.
Macron. It's a good fit.
Well, I like that, eh? Thanks, Zels. You look very good in it.
Mate, I'm toasty warm in this. It's very comfortable and I'm loving it. So very excited about the future with Macron and getting our hands on some awesome kit.
All right. So let's go back into the powder blue, the
Yes.
navy blue.
Yes.
The days are blue, the daisy blue. All the
Sure,
way.
it's not Leinster blue, mate.
No, Leinster is a lot darker.
It is a darker blue, you're right.
Leinster's a darker blue.
Yeah.
This is this blowball.
It is blowball.
That's blowball below.
That's blowball.
Blowball.
Yeah.
Blowball up. Below.
It's almost French.
Yeah, almost French, but not quite. But tell me,
Yes.
have you noticed that there's been no interest in the URC final in Cape Town?
Mate, I have noticed that. I was wondering how you were going to bring the Stormers into this conversation, and I'm starting to see how you're doing it.
Well, there's several wonderful Bulls players who were schooled in Cape Town, who played for the Stormers and have taken their skill sets up north. One of them being Kobus Visser, 32 matches for the Stormers. And I'm not talking big Kobus from 95. I'm talking Jasper's younger brother by a year. Interesting story with that guy as well. Came down to Cape Town into the Stormers Academy.
I remember.
2016, he played, 2015, he played SA schools, then he played SA under 20s, 16, Province under 19, Province under 21, Province, and the next year he was playing for the Stormers.
Wow.
And he was 19.
Yeah, he was
not 20. Yeah, so,
excited about him.
yeah, and then obviously he went overseas. He's been outstanding for Sale Sharks. He's come back to the Bulls, and he's been one of their big players in the URC. Locked in, dangerous.
Never more so than last week in that semi-final.
Yeah, we'll get to that now. But as Jake said, This is a guy that he expects to see playing Test rugby by the Rugby Championship.
Yeah.
A bloke who's come back to South Africa from Sale Sharks and to want to play for the Springboks, find his best form. And I think that's one thing that the Bulls have done well under Jake. They brought some very good players back who weren't necessarily in the Bok equation initially, but they got into the Bok equation because they're playing for a team that's made their third final in 4 seasons and made the playoffs every year as well. So kudos, a big shout out from Cape Town to the Bulls.
Yep.
And to keep picking those Stormers guys, man.
I would
It'll
say
be a win for Cape Town.
I would say that's probably Jake's strength, his talent identification. And he's proven over and over again that he can build a squad. So he's found some great players overseas, and he's brought them back to build his Bull squad. And they're into another final, mates, and they could win it this weekend.
They could. Well, we'll get to that later. But firstly, mate, let's look back on that semi-final.
Let's.
The road to the final.
Oh, I like this.
It started 4 years ago. When Jake decided we don't want to win the Rainbow Cup, we want to win the URC. No, so the semi-final, the Sharks. Now, the buzz around that game compared to the lack of buzz in South Africa around this final. And maybe it's because we're not in Dublin. We're in Kaapstad.
Well, I mean, Dublin is not in South Africa, so that is a fact. But I think also, mate, I mean, geography is not your strength. But I think also...
Did you find that one funny?
I did, mate. I did. I think also, South Africans like a winner. And I think the general sentiment is, even though we ran a poll on the website and 60% of people said they think the Bulls are going to win, I think the sentiment in South Africa is that they are dreading what's coming out of Dublin this week. So you'll probably be quiet this week, and if the Bulls win, next week it'll be like they were supporting them the whole time.
Are you saying that the Sharks will think this was a good one to miss?
I think 100%. There's a couple of guys in that Sharks team who are very grateful their prize for winning the semi-final to go to Dublin. They missed that. I think definitely.
And they went out heroes in Pretoria, heroic effort. The Galacticos, they'll look back on the season, ended third on the table, did most of it without Eben Etzebeth, who's been injured, concussion issues, missed that semi-final. Him and Jason Jenkins not being there was a big blow.
Definitely.
We had picked, you had picked the Sharks to win by a point. I picked the Bulls to win 31-26 by 5. But when we did pick that, Eben and Jason were pretty much going to play.
Yeah.
So it's a huge, huge loss that. But then that was balanced out a bit during the game when 13 Bulls were playing against 15 Sharks and 3 yellow cards to the Bulls in the game. That period, 10 minutes before halftime, Jake reckons that's when the match was won. That's when Kubas Visa stood tallest. But when we look at the season and the Galacticos, and we'll discuss them in greater detail next week when we wrap up the whole URC, not good enough to get to a semi-final and lose when you've got 14 of the current Springbok squad in your system and you've got 12 of them playing. They had a Springbok winner. They had a Springbok fullback. They had a Springbok in waiting winner, the form player of the tournament. 2 of the most experienced Springbok midfielders, Springbok halfbacks. They have the Springbok captain. They have
the most exciting youngster outside of probably Sasha in the back line.
Springbok in waiting, Ethan Hooker. They have Oxen Chair, best loose head scrummager in the world. Bongi, two World Cups, 19 and 23, 25-13, and it could have been 40, had they played 15 on 15 throughout that game. Not good enough. And they've played like that all season. They've managed to win games. I think they won 8 games within 7 points. But something missing there.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Maybe.
What is that? You're a Durban boy. You DHS, you Pinetown.
I think they're missing Andre Aubert, Mark Andrews,
and Gary Teichman.
and Gary Teichman, the Scot. Yeah, no, look, we've been saying it the whole season. You can't knock the Sharks for their results, but you definitely can knock them for their performances, given the quality of that lineup. Eben and Jason Jenkins out, huge blow. You said the Sharks will be happy that they missed the final. They've gone out as heroes in the semi-final. I don't think they went out as heroes. I think Sharks fans will be disappointed with that performance, given they played against the Bulls team that ate 3 yellow cards. I think they were heroes last season when they won the Challenge Cup, when they rallied under Eben and did some good things. But from the outside looking in and having seen this sort of thing develop before, when the sort of the aftermath, the hangover of World Cup success spills into the club scene. We've seen it before. with some players who maybe get a little bit too much control over team, or maybe leaned on too heavily by the management side to make decisions, and it becomes a little bit out of control. And I think the Sharks are maybe, and I'm guessing, are maybe a little bit guilty of not being organized enough, not being on point enough, and relying too much on some great players to make amazing things happen in tough situations, ad lib. And you've spoken about the Sharks' success when they've played a team that is excluding some of those star players.
Is it not a case of I go back to that incredible Sharks performance. Dave Williams was pretty much running the team that week.
Right.
I think Plum may have been in New Zealand or on his way back from New Zealand, seeing the family. The 11 of those World Cup winning Springboks weren't available, including Earman, including Sia, including Oxenchair. I think no Andre the Giant in that game. He may have played, I'm not sure, but Rassie was injured. There was just this exuberance of youth. There were guys who want to become Springboks, Ethan Hooker being one of them. We saw Hendrickse play a great game that day. They were down to 12 players at one stage against 15.
Yeah.
They just defended for their lives. I know it's a cliche, but they did. They looked like a team that played for the Sharks. They played for that jersey, kind of had been in the system. And their bigger goal was, if I can do it here, I can become a Springbok. And they won that game 29-19. They were 29-12 up with like 2 minutes to go. The Bulls scored right at the end. I think at one stage the Bulls had 70% possession, 75% field position.
Sure.
These guys were just magnificent in defense around the fringes. The moment they transitioned, they got turnover ball. They just understood width. They understood pace. And they just cut the Bulls to shreds. I think that was their best win of the season, one of the best performances. They did it minus 11 of their big name players at Loftus. These big name players come back in and boom. It's not quite there because the Springboks remain where that's the arena in which they perform. And this is, let's just get the URC season out the way. Let's get the Investec Champions Cup out the way. And we're good enough to be picked on reputation, and we'll show that form there. And I think at the moment, with so many World Cup players still around, that is a risk that some of the regions and the clubs run, is that the guy's still going to make it because of what he's done previously, but he's not necessarily doing it for you week in, week out at club level.
Spot on. You also, in many cases, unless you have a very strong leadership, and generally those coaches are not unanimously sort of loved and celebrated and popular amongst the playing group. But unless you have a strong leader, like a Michael Checker who comes in and says, I actually don't care where you've played and what you've done. What are you delivering week to week? And that's what you've got to do to keep your place. If you have somebody who comes in as a bit more of a facilitator, then you get this kind of environment where a big name player knows he's pretty much locked in and dialed into play whenever he wants to, and he's pretty autonomous on the field. And I think that's why that junior team you spoke about that beat the Bulls was so successful, because they stuck to a plan, and the plan was scripted for success based on the data and how the game works. And that's often why you'll see like a team that comes under new coaching has that surge initially, because everybody does what the coach wants them to do. He comes in with the plan, he says, this is the way we're going to try things. Obviously, there's consultation with the players and there's buy-in, but there's a cohesion that comes out of that. Instead of looking to a guy in a moment to make a big call or make a big move, everybody is kind of pulling in the same direction for the same goal. And I think that clarity that comes from that is vital to winning in pro sport consistently.
Yeah, and I think also the way they gave up the EPCR Challenge Cup defense, the way they gave up the Investec Champions Cup by sending a B team to Bordeaux and taking 66 points. Pino scored 6 tries against them, a record. People forget that result. They then pretty much sacrificed, sent a B team to Leon, got beaten. They sent their best teams there, they would have got a result in there. For me, they were good enough to win the Challenge Cup and make the semi-finals of the URC. They gave all that up, came back. They were poor. They got a last-minute win against Edinburgh, won in the 78th minute against Ulster. But this narrative, good teams know how to win ugly. Doesn't matter how they win. Then they came home and they were poor. Before that, they got beaten by 10-7 by effectively a Leinster Academy side. Then that last game at home against Scarlets, 12-3, 9-3 to the last bit when Rassie kicked a penalty. Then 100 minutes against Munster. Everyone's like heroic. Great kick penalty shootout. But they shouldn't have been 21-12 down, not with that caliber of side.
Totally.
And then, to me, it was a fairly meek surrender at Loftus, no matter what people say, not with that quality side.
Totally.
And again, kudos to Jake and the Bulls defense of coaches, because they shut Andre the Giant down. I mean, he's been good all season. He's made yards, and there was nowhere to move for him. They really took the fight to the Sharks physically. They were controlled. I felt they were disciplined. I didn't think either of the 2 yellow cards should have been yellow cards.
Agreed.
I thought Foster's was just a bit sloppy and a bit stupid. Play the ball, he's just getting up. I've seen other guys just be warned for that. He got a yellow card for that. But then the Cam Honeycomb tackle on Sear, it wasn't a tip tackle in my view. The Sharks player came in and basically turned it into a tip tackle, no more than a penalty at best. Then Marcel could see questioning it, getting warned, and then being penalizing Spin for collapsing a line out like 40 meters out. Why would he do that? So, yeah, I think they'll look back and the statistic they may say, 3rd place in the table, semi-final away against a very good Bulls side. Not with that quality of side. You take that win that they had at Loftus with a youthful side, build on that. But I think there's still big issues with the Sharks. They should be performing better. They should be consistently a top 3 team. And when you play them in Durban, everyone plays in those conditions. They should be putting sides away.
Spot on. And I think the other half of that, other side of that coin, the other half of that debate is how good the Bulls were. As much as you look at the yellow cards and you think the Sharks should have converted that advantage into points, they were playing against a scrum powered by the best scrummager in world rugby, Wilco Louw, a one-man scrum wrecking ball who destroyed Ox and Bongi at scrum time. Like, you'll never see that again. This guy is a phenom and creates a base for that Bulls team like no other.
You talk about Wilco Louw, which brings us to every week we do with our wonderful partner, Stecco. We do the Stecco plays of the week, the rugby plays of the week, and we traditionally look at a winner who's scoring a great try. We look at a fullback who's cutting the line. We look at a Sasha FM who's dazzling at 10, or one of those glorious loose Henry Pollock type tries. But when you look at plays of the week, you talk about shaping the future, sustainability, power, all those things. You look at a front rower who wears number 3 on his back, and he is a one-man demolition job, and that is Wilco Louw. I mean, that guy is a beast. Incredible.
Absolutely.
And you could put every one of the Bulls scrums down as a Stecco player of the week. Some of them were just incredible. It was as if Bongi and Ox were on skates on their way back to Durban. I mean, this was one where, no one's eating salads in that Bulls front row.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe not even chocolate cake.
Exactly.
That's pap and vlees, Boetie.
Yeah.
That's pap and vlees.
Yeah.
And a lekker brandewyn.
I mean, so rugby is a team sport, and within that, the scrum is a team effort. But the impact of that guy on that game and on that facet of play is just unprecedented. It was like watching the Stormers play our high school team. Just phenomenal how they rolled that Bulls tight 5. And a lot of the spin-off that happened in the rest of that game came from that platform and how they stunted the Sharks platform. So kudos to the Sharks backs who try to convert that back football into front football, but it just didn't work out.
So when we look at the Stecco players of the week, we've narrowed it down to 3. We did speak before we started. And we looked at the Bulls game and we looked at Leinster beating Cell Sharks because there was a big South African contingent. It was the farewell to Jean-Luc Dupré for Cell Sharks. Robert Dupré is still there. He scored a try. Dan Dupré playing there as well. Ernst van Rijn. And a lot of South Africans who did play there now, among them being obviously Kobus Visser and Faf de Klerk, who went to Japan. So there's always been a strong South African presence there. Up against Andre Liebenberg, who's been a stalwart for the Leicester Tigers, and Andre Pollard, double World Cup winner, Mr. Iceman. Steel. Like he doesn't miss when he plays for South Africa. Man van Staal. Praat jy Engels? Ja, ons praat Engels. So the joke there, for those who don't know, is we used to have die Man van Staal in South Africa, for those who weren't born at that time, but it was dubbed into Afrikaans. And Zels will tell the story.
Yeah, there was an episode where die Man van Staal gets stranded in the Amazonian jungles and he's stumbling around trying to find out where he needs to be, and he sees this pathway, follows the pathway, and he finds this little hut in the middle of the jungle. And one of these Amazonian tribal guys comes out of the hut. And in the original show, I can't remember the name of the guy who's the main character in die Man van Staal.
Lee Majors,
that's it. He says to the guy, do you speak English? But because it had been dubbed, he says to him, praat jy Engels?
I don't think too many in the Bulls praat Engels, but they will be speaking English in Dublin. So the Stecker Player of the Week, Wilco starts off. He's one of them.
Yeah.
For every time he went down in the scrum, he got
100%.
Player of the Week. And then Andre Pollard, not so much Pollard's cross kick because it wasn't one of his better cross kicks, but the Leicester winner,
Adam Radwan.
Adam Radwan. I've tried to pronounce that name several times as well.
Right.
Took the most spectacular
Superb.
catch.
Straight out of the NFL.
To score.
Two-handed it,
Yeah.
scored in the corner.
No.
Beautiful.
Louis
Laid himself out.
Louis Rees-Hammond could have looked at that.
Yeah,
and said,
exactly.
That's what you need to go to NFL.
Exactly.
And then the third one, and you could pick a few, Sebastian de Klerk on the win.
Yes.
Scored a fantastic try early on, but then had a wonderful run and then gave this amazing cross kick to show his skills. And Kanan Moody leapt up high over a Pelifasi and scored. And Sebastian de Klerk, outstanding. He was the player of the match. Do you think deservedly so?
I think he 100% was the deserved player of the match. I thought he was very, very good. But in terms of the try of the week and the Stecco play of the week, I'm 100% behind your call on Wilco Lau. I think he's definitely the right man for that.
Let's give it to a prop. Let's give it to the guy who's going to be so influential in Dublin this weekend. He's going to be so big for the Springboks.
Yep.
I'm a huge fan of Wilco's, as are you. From the Cape, learned his trade here.
Here we go.
Played for the Stormers, but then went to Harlequins and was really good for
Yeah.
them for 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And the test player, Wilco Lau, came back from Harlequins. He didn't necessarily go there. He had already played 14 tests at that stage. There was concerns about his all-round game. But they recognized, we need you to do one thing, bud, and do it well. And that is put loose heads on roller skates and send them back to where they came from.
100%.
And he's done that, and he's been one of the biggest defining influential factors with the improvement of the Bulls. Because pre-Wilco Lau, and he's injured now, Steenekamp, the loose head, they were struggling when it came to their set piece, especially their scrum. He is the X-Factor player. He's our Stecco player of the week, and he's our Stecco player
Magic.
of the week.
Wilco, the prize is in the post.
Yeah, the check is in the post, the prize in the post, but we will speak to the lads at Stecco to see if they can't sum up a little something for Wilco.
Yes.
Because for me, Wilco is one of the players of the season.
You get that guy on a stationary bike that's connected to a turbine, mate. He could power a province, I think.
I like that. Can we use that?
Let's try it.
Copyright.
I don't know, mate.
So Wilco Lau, congratulations. He's going to be big, big, big in Dublin this weekend. It's the Bulls against Leinster, Vodacom URC final. That's the one big one. The other one is at the Allianz Stadium in Twickenham. It's Leicester Tigers against Bath. Johan van Graan, coach of Bath. Tommy de Toy, who's played well. 20 tries in the last 2 seasons for Bath. He'll be there. A couple of other sprinkling of South Africans on the Bath side. And as we said, Andre Liebenberg. And Andre Pollard plays his last game. I think it's 53 games now in 2 seasons for Leicester.
Wow.
He's been outstanding.
Wow.
Michael Shaker's finishing off. He's been very good. One plays 2 in the league. So they both win his top 2.
Yep.
Both had strong semi-final performances, and they play each other in the final. So a lot of South African interest. So it's also great from a Springbok perspective when you see someone like Pollard playing so well, being so dominant, so influential in his club setup. And we've got Sasha, who's just been amazing for the Stormers. They offer such contrast to that Springbok setup. And for me, they're the go-to couple as we build to 2027. It's the perfect combination. The 2-time World Cup winner, ice in his veins, Andre Pollard, and the Maverick at 10 who can do anything.
I like it. Iceman and Maverick.
Yeah. And hey, not bad, eh? Iceman and Maverick. And they can fly that Bok plane
100%.
to 27 and beyond. So injury-free, balance their game time. I think we've really struck gold, green and gold, in Pollard and Sasha. But great to see Pollard, who had a terrible run of injuries, COVID. When he played for Montpellier, he played 20 games in 4 years there. And he's played 53 times in 2 seasons for Leicester. And found I think it's a bit of his soul again in rugby. So yeah, Ben Jan's also legend of the club. He will be gone. So tune into that one.
I wonder whether that moment where he was omitted from that World Cup squad and had to kind of consider a future where he didn't play Springbok rugby. I mean, as fleeting as it was, I wonder whether that wasn't a bit of a reset for him mentally. Like going back into club training and thinking, you know what, this might be how the rest of my career goes, and I need to make the best of this. Maybe there was a bit of an awakening there for him.
Yeah, I think there was, becoming a dad, settling in, and realizing there were things bigger than playing for the Springboks. It's basically everything he's done since he was 20, and committing to a club that would be close to his heart. It was something very similar to what he felt at the Bulls, where he's returning to again adds to a great purchase by Jake.
Yep.
But yeah, we talk about his admission from the World Cup, and we've spoken about this often, where when you watch Chasing the Sun and Jacques Nina always says people mock them for picking 4 scrum halves, and where's the method in the madness? And there was, and I'd say where was the method? Because one of them played in the 23 when it came to the World Cup final. The other one played on the win in games leading up to that. We had a 44% goal kicking strike rate pre Pollard's arrival. Pollard arrives, kicks 13 out of 13. We win the quarterfinal, semi-final, and final by a point each, and his kicking is influential to everything. So I don't think there was method in the madness. I think there was just madness.
Yeah, I agree.
In omitting him. And when he got the phone call from Rassie to say, we want you in Paris, basically he was mowing a lawn and making his comeback to playing at Leicester. And he played 36 minutes, the last 36 minutes of that game on the Sunday, and he was in Paris on the Monday. And as I say, the rest is history. So
on that point, you talk about the 4 scrum halves in that World Cup squad, and it's a bit of a digression from where we are now, but scrum half is a position going into this season that a lot of people are unsure about. They're a bit hazy about it. Jaden hasn't been great. Grant Williams has been injured. It's great to see Faf de Klerk back into the squad. A guy like Ambrose Papier has performed very well for the Bulls. And, Morne van den Berg also out injured. Lions have had a bit of an iffy season. And Kobus Reinach, 35 years old, coming back to South Africa to play for the Stormers now. So we're in a funny space. Even though we had 4 scrum halves at the last World Cup, we're going into this season, 2025 season, and there's a bit of uncertainty around the future of that position. How do you evaluate it?
Again, Faf de Klerk has been such an incredible servant. I believe Faf de Klerk, when he's playing well, he's your starting 9. The dimension that he adds to that box setup, the way he defends, his cover defense, his tenacity, he gets under the skin of forwards. He's got confidence. He's got the hair, man. He just shakes it.
And the speedo.
Yeah, the speedo, the hair, the attitude. I mean, he is a favorite of mine. He kind of had his downs early on in his career under Alistair Coetzee. He got axed, came back under Rassie, and really reveled in the way those Boks played. I don't know how good Japan has been for him. He seems to be the one South African that's quite off the radar over there. So it may have added longevity to him. He's on the wrong side of 30 going into the World Cup. I'm a big Grant Williams fan. I think in South Africa, he's the best player. He's injured at the moment. Kobus Reinach, I think still, he's a good signing for the Stormers. I think they need that kind of driver at 9, with Sasha at 10 and a Damien Williams at 12 kind of combination. I think it could be good for them. Also, though, you've got to manage his game time very well for the Boks. I think it may be a push if we get him to the World Cup. But the guy for me is Ambrose Papier. I think he's had an outstanding season. He again got picked early on. Didn't go too well for him in the context of the team performance as well. He's a guy who can play wing. He's got such incredible pace. He plays 9. He's been the best 9 for me of all the South Africans. I thought he was outstanding in the semi-final against the Sharks. I cut them to pieces to set up the first try. Option taking good. The critique of his game in the past was that they tried to do the magic play all the time, and teams would let him go and basically isolate him and turn him over for the penalty. He's matured a lot. We said before the game, the teams that had been announced, we thought it was Ambrose and Keegan Johannes at 10. Another guy with great versatility. He can play 10, he can play 9, he can play 15, and he kicks goals. We were surprised that neither of those two were in a big box squad of 54. When Johan Goosen did well for the first 40, when Keegan Johannes came on, I thought those two guys showed up. The Hendrickse brothers are in the Springbok squad.
True that. Yeah, that's fair.
So I think going into this final against Gibson Park, with Anton Dupont, the top 2 9s without a doubt in world rugby, in performance over the last 2-3 seasons, and playing against a guy of that quality, Island scrum half, former New Zealand Māori scrum half, Ambrose has played against him before. If he has a big game, he's got to be knocking on that door for Boks selection. And I think as the season unfolds, close to the Rugby Championship, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ambrose Papier at 9 if Grant Williams' injury doesn't come better.
Yeah.
I would be looking at a Faf and an Ambrose in terms of the big matches against the All Blacks, against France on the end of the tour. Again, if Grant Williams isn't there, you're a big Jaden man. I'm not quite as sold on Jaden as you are. Ambrose or Jaden, which one do you go for? With
Yeah, look, I love Jaden and I love his kicking game and I love the intangibles that he brings to the party. But you can't deny Ambrose Papiri is explosive as an athlete, and if you are playing a game where you're going to create spaces for a guy like that to exploit, he's going to beat Jaden Hendricks in a sprint running backwards. So he's a proper threat around the fringes. And it's great to see him thrive because he's had some really down seasons. It's great to see the whole Bulls thing starting to click. And let's hope it clicks this weekend in Dublin.
Yeah, I think, again, if we keep on looking to Dublin, it's one of those games, everything has to click for the Bulls. It's a big blow that Auriflow hasn't been there all season, and a monster one that there's no Cameron Hanekom. The form loose forward along with Evan Riss in South Africa in the URC, and definitely the best all-round player for the Bulls all season. I mean, he just contributes so much to the game. He's 21 years old. If you think of a guy like Henry Pollock at the Saints, you think of Cameron Hanekom here. Wow, there's some good young loose forwards, eh? They just bring a dimension to the game when you watch it. It's like, I couldn't wait for that first scrum, Wilco against Ox. 1 minute 37, I think it was. And we got another one. It's like, that's it. You've paid your admission fee. You've given up your time. You've got what you wanted. So it's thrilling to see those kinds of players. They are entertainers playing. So yeah, it does weaken them severely. Ron Nakir's done bloody well in a shifting position to 7, which has allowed Kubus to come through with JF Van Heerden and the lock. But imagine if you had those options coming off the bench, going away from home to play in Dublin. So yeah, you talk about, I think individually he can make a big statement if he just backs himself, doesn't try too hard. But for them to win, everything is going to have to click, and X-Guy's going to have to do his bit, and they just can't afford to give away cards. I think it's 19 yellow cards and 4 red cards, even though 2 of the reds have been rescinded. It's hard enough to play Leinster in Dublin. You don't want to be playing them with 14 or 13 players and a referee that has now refereed. He refereed 9 games PRD in the URC this season, and 4 of them have been Leinster, and 3 of them have been in Dublin. And you haven't seen Leinster struggle too much around him. And the last time he did referee the Bulls and Leinster, the Bulls actually won. But he's not my favorite referee. He says there's too many rules in the game.
He's Italian, I'm just saying. He is Italian.
Yeah, but he's not wearing... Well, he is wearing Macron, so we'll have to like him. He is wearing, because the match officials do win. Well, there you go.
We love him.
We love him. He's a very good referee.
Bella, bella.
Si, si, si. Ciao, Bella. So
yeah, it's going to be interesting. I look at that game, and as much as I'd love the Bulls to win it, and I think that the Bulls are going to be in it, I just can't see it actually going that way. I think that Leinster have got too much focus and concentration and pressure on them to deliver this week after an underwhelming Champions Cup by their standards. I think that the Bulls are going to be winning when Wilco Low jogs off after 50, 55 minutes, but I think they're going to lose that next period by 15 points. So I've got Leinster to win this final by 12.
Are we going to predictions?
Straight to predictions.
Straight to predictions. You don't want to hang around.
Straight to predictions.
You don't want to hang around and talk about the Western Province Cape.
I know you're going to take us there eventually, mate.
And
I just thought I'd give the people
many great players they produced. Wilco, if you would like to know, was, he grew up in the Cape, and
you can't help yourself.
But here he used to play more than 55 minutes because he was conditioned to play 55 minutes. I looked at the matchups. Bulls have won 4 of the last 5. A great one when they played Leinster in the semi-finals in Loftus last season. They effectively played an Irish team that pretty much pushed the box at Loftus 2 months later and beat them in the 81st minute in Durban. And they've won 4 out of the last 5, but they've really played the full strength. They've never played the full strength side away from home. They beat them in the semi-final. A great performance. Again, scrummaging performance there. They put Andrew Porter back to Dublin. I don't think he's ever recovered. When you look at the matchups and you look at the side that they've picked, and they haven't had any success in the Investec Champions Cup, the 5th star they've been chasing since the URC formed 4 seasons ago, their focus has been totally now semi-final and final. And they were scratchy against the Scarlets, but they dismantled Glasgow.
Yeah.
It was as emphatic as the 52-0 win.
One of their best performances.
And you look at Dan Sheehan and say no one can be hungry. They haven't won a title for 4 years.
Mate, I'm not so sure anybody can question the hunger of Wilco Louw.
Well, no one was questioning his hunger, but hungrier.
Yeah.
He said because they haven't won titles. They've got 14 internationals. They've got going on the Lions tour. They've got Rassie Snyman, the best lock in the competition. You got Geordie Barrett, probably the best 12 in the competition.
James Lowe.
James Lowe, great winner, former New Zealand Maori winner, now playing for Ireland. He's going on the Lions tour as well. When you look at the team they've put together, by rights, they should be 15 to 20 points favorites. Doesn't matter who they're playing against.
Agreed.
And I think the bookies have got them overwhelming favorites. The difference is they're playing at Croke Park. It takes 85,000 people. Apparently, they're thinking 45,000 tickets will be the max that will be sold there. It's not at the Aviva. I think there was a clashing. It wasn't because they needed a bigger crowd. It was a clashing venue. So everything points to what you say. Everything points to a Leinster win by 15 to 20 points.
But therein may be the undoing, mate.
Hear me out. So I asked ChatGPT, who will win and why? And ChatGPT gave it to the Bulls, 24-20.
No ways.
And I'm not going to argue with artificial intelligence. So I'm going to go with a Bulls win.
What?
No logic.
What? Based on the Stormers in the starting lineup.
Based on ChatGPT
I don't
telling me
believe
that
it.
it's 24-20 to the Bulls. The Bulls will win the URC 24.
So you're saying Croke Park is going to be Choke Park?
It's going to be Choke Park for Leinster.
Unbelievable call, man. I thought I was being bold last week calling Glasgow to beat them, but you calling the Bulls to beat them in the final at Croke Park. Insanity.
And Mr. Piatti is going to give 2 yellow cards against Leinster.
Yeah. One,
according to ChatGPT.
none of them will be against an Irish player.
Huh? One will be Rassie Snyman. Too good, you're off. The other one, Geordie Barrett. Scott Robinson's waiting. Go early. So I'm backing the Bulls to
I
win.
love it, mate. I love it.
And I'm backing David Creel to have an outstanding game.
Yes.
That guy's played 56 matches out of the last 61 URC matches over the last 3 seasons. He averages 77 minutes a game.
No ways.
He has
Invincible.
been outstanding. Jake rightly said he was shocked that the guy didn't make the Elite 15. Farrell of Munster, whose stats were amazing, made that. And that's a call made by opposition captains, coaches, and some of the media. But he said he can't also believe that he's not close to a national squad setup.
He should be.
Given he can play on the wing, he can play at fullback,
Play everywhere.
he kicks goals, and he can play anywhere in the midfield. He likened him, in terms of his defensive understanding, to the legendary Jean de Villiers.
Wow.
109 tests, 111 matches
Sure.
for the Springboks, and more than 100 for the Stormers.
Sure.
He's got an interest in chats as well. Jean, he played a season in Munster, got injured, didn't play too much there. But apparently he played something like 12 minutes for Leicester.
Okay.
In the English Premiership.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember
So
that season.
I think guys show him the picture that was taken of him when he arrived.
2009. Yeah. Yeah.
He got his sold into that.
Yeah.
So he will be looking at Saturday's final, looking at his former clubmates, Leicester playing against Bath, and maybe claim one there as well. But an incredible player, Jean de Villiers.
Yeah.
Wonderful understanding of defensive patterns. When he played win for the box, he looked comfortable there. They called him the intercept kid because he just read attacking players so well. And Jake likened David Creel to that. So you're also a big David Creel fan, eh?
Huge fan of David Creel, and I like his versatility and I like his consistency. That's the thing with David Creel, is he does what he does in every single game. He may not be the flashiest game breaker, but he's that steam train that delivers. The engine just keeps chugging and you know exactly what you're going to get from him. When you pair that with versatility, he's a very, very valuable player. And in a way, the fact that he doesn't play for the Boks or hasn't played for the Boks makes him uber valuable to the Bulls. Much the same with Sebastian de Klerk. 2 guys that are great players, could potentially play Test rugby and can win you matches at URC level, who are available to play for you. That's huge.
So if you look at the one-on-one matchups in the Bulls and the tail of the tape,
The tail of the tape.
they're both like their stats this season as well. They scored the most points. They scored the most tries. The discipline has obviously been a lot better. When I say discipline in terms of cards, I think they've had 9 yellow cards compared to 19. Keep on going on with that. Jake says, is it ill discipline? Is it referee interpretation? But you can't afford to play a game with less than 50
I think when you're a
on the field.
confrontational team like the Bulls, you're going to get yourself into those bad body positions more often than others, aren't you?
Yeah. But now, one-on-one, if you look at matchups, the Bulls aren't, they would edge a lot of those matchups against those Irish internationals. The key there is how good can their bench be when they come on. That's why I bemoan the lack of a Ulrich Lowe, the lack of a Cam Honeycomb, big blow to not have those players there, because you have the potential of them even coming off the bench in a final and giving that last 40-minute shove. But I think it's going to be a bloody good game. And I think it favors the Bulls that this game has been played at Croke Park.
I agree.
Which is not a traditional home
I agree
to Irish
100%
rugby
on that.
or to Leinster.
Look, if it was going to be a packed Croke Park, that's a different story, but I don't think it's going to be.
No, when I spoke to the guys over there, I think they'd sold 35,000 tickets by today, which is Thursday. But they would be euphoric if they could get to 50,000.
Aister reckons all of Munster should rock up in Bulls jerseys.
Well, if they get to 50,000, there'll probably be a lot of South Africans that have come over from London. There's a lot of Bulls supporters over there. So I've got the Bulls to win. Myself and Ace from Chat GPT, my mate, the artificial intelligence. I'm not arguing with that anymore. 24-20 to the Bulls. URC champions for the first time.
Beautiful.
And the second South African team to win the URC. And if people say to me, it's because I love the Bulls, it is. Ek is baie lief vir hulle.
I like that, mate. I was wrong last week. I want to be wrong this week. My heart is with you 100%, but my head says nope. When Wilco goes off, the game changes, and Leinster win this one by 12 points. I'm going to say a whopping 33-21.
Wasn't it 15 earlier?
Changed my mind. And I said they're going to score 15 more points in that last period when Wilco's off.
Okay, 33-21. Zels is calling it unpatriotically to the Irish guys from Dublin. This patriot, I don't believe it. Hulle kom uit die noorde. Hulle kom van die uiste, suide, weste, ooste. Bring vir Wilco saam. Ons vir jou, Suid-Afrika. We are back in the Bulls in our household. We are wearing powder blue. And I'm taking my Stormers cap off.
Sure.
This weekend.
I never thought, mate.
And I'm putting a blue bull wooden cap on. Because I'm a South Afrikaner. And I couldn't. In my heart of hearts, I'd rather be wrong than back Leinster to win.